On radio, they used to call this a vertical tease or a horizontal tease or some kind of tease. I don't know. They used to talk about teases nonstop. That was some program directors. That was their whole job to say tease, stick to the clock, do the weather, do the time, traffic. Obviously, absolute morons who didn't know what they were doing, but they would say tease if you got something. And I'm going to do a vertical tease for tomorrow because tomorrow's a big day. It's a big day in our guy Turtle Boy's life. He has been talking and tweeting about this case in Hopkinton for a while. There is, and it is going to get dicey. I'm just going to predict. It's a very tragic case. Mikayla Miller, a 16-year-old girl from Hopkinton, committed suicide last month. I'm sure when it happened, her family was devastated, her friends, the town, but they didn't know that the storm was coming, and the storm is the race hustlers are on their way. Monica Cannon Grant, Turtle Boy's buddy, is organizing a rally tomorrow in Hopkinton, demanding answers. I mean, there was an investigation. They determined it was a suicide. Not good enough because these people, Monica Cannon Grant, Ayanna Presley's tweeting about it. Ibrahim Kindi, the big scam artist, the flim flam artist from BU, he's now tweeting about it, and obviously none of them has any idea what they're talking about. There was a meeting in Hopkinton last night from the select board, by the select board to discuss the planned demonstration, which is organized by Black Lives Matter, and their meeting tomorrow afternoon, as Turtle Boy points out, 4:30 in the afternoon, an impossible time for people who work for a living or have to deal with their children. These, as we know, Monica Cannon Grant, a professional demonstrator, a professional agitator. Turtle Boy has written about her many, many times. It's not going to be good. They don't have the truth on their side, but that doesn't matter. We don't care. I mean, unless you got videotape, like in the case of Ma'Khia Bryant, there's only so much you can do. In this case, if you listen to the evidence, she had what do we say? No, she got roughed up by kids.
Yep. Earlier
hours before.
Yep.
Hours before she died, those kids all had alibis. They should prove they weren't in the area when she died. They have the steps on her watch that prove she went from the spot in her apartment complex to the tree where she hanged herself. The exact number of steps. They have that evidence. I mean, obviously, they did an investigation, but obviously it's not good enough. If you're Monica Cannon Grant or Ayanna Presley, I mean, you're looking for an opportunity. I mean, this is your big chance. I'm not sure if it goes national. I'm not sure if our guy Turtle Boy will be covering it, but we'll talk to him tomorrow because he had a huge week. Not only was there that, which we will follow tonight, we'll see how it all, so we'll follow the build up and we will be all over it tomorrow as all the grifters head to Hopkinton, head to the starting line. That's where the rally is, the starting line of the marathon. If they actually started a race, how far would Monica Cannon Grant be able to go? You think she'd make it 100 yards?
Oh boy, but I think all of her friends would help her get through it. I mean, Jesus, the woman is all over local every chance they get to call her. I mean, they just hire her already.
You know, it's amazing. And they're so afraid of her. They'll give her whatever they want. They'll pretend she's legit. They will not call her out for the grifter she is. Turtle Boy's the only one that does that. And speaking of the only, I feel like I'm kissing that weird Worcester blogger's ass a little too much, but he had a great blog yesterday, perfectly timed, just what you were looking for if you're following the news, the national news. By the way, what he did was out. I think he was the first one, at least the first one in my timeline, in my world, and I pay pretty close attention to these things, Cullinane, but there, let me see what time it was. 17 hours ago, Turtle Boy had the blog with all the details and the photos of the woman, the worst woman in the world, the worst person in the world, the one who berated the cop in LA. That I've never seen a video go as viral as that did. The woman in the white Mercedes who berated the cop, calling him a murderer because he pulled her over for using her cell phone. You probably saw it. It's disgusting. And then she finishes after berating him as a murderer and says she might get murdered and her kid might get murdered by this cop who could not have been more professional. Then she goes full racist and starts calling him a Mexican racist who wishes he were white. The whole thing is disgusting. she would be lying about it today if he didn't video it. The cop did it on his own. It wasn't even a body cam, but it was brilliant of him to get this all on videotape and give it to that Bill Malugin, the new Fox News reporter, Bill Malugin from LA. Obviously, we played it yesterday. We talked about it, tweeted about it. Turtle Boy has everything. He's got her name, her history, photos. Her name, I guess, her name is Kalunda Jenkins, also known as Kalunda Ray Iwamizo, who's a professor at Southern, what's the college called? Southern, Los
Angeles Southwest College.
Los Angeles Southwest, I believe, Community College. She brags about being a teacher. Of course, she wasn't, in school or working. She's in LA. And he actually has her pay. She makes $99,000 to teach this, probably 2 classes a week. Makes $99,000, drives a Mercedes, and just berates this cop. I mean, we could play it, but I'm pretty sure everybody's seen it by now.
No, but actually, you say it went really viral, but it does show that you're in such a bubble on Twitter or on some of these websites, because the reaction, I got a ton of people reaching out yesterday that hadn't seen or heard that video.
Oh, yeah.
Until the podcast came out. So that video was just absolutely horrific. I'm surprised it didn't make national nightly news for everybody.
Go ahead and play a little bit of it. I mean, we played a lot yesterday, played the whole thing yesterday, but play a little bit and we'll tell you what holes that Turtle Boy has filled in on this story.
Okay. Can you zoom in on that for me,
Sure.
Jay? Thank you.
And I'm perfectly legal, and I'm a teacher. So there.
Congratulations.
Murderer. You're a murderer.
What's your last name? I can't see that there.
Well,
if
here you
stop,
go,
Stop
murderer.
shaking. Zoom in on that for
No,
me,
because
man.
you're scaring me.
Oh,
You're threatening to kill me and my son. Can you give me
Okay.
the
Well,
iPad,
I'll
please?
tell you what. You keep smiling.
Yeah,
You're on camera.
You're trying to threaten to kill me.
I
I'm not
didn't say that.
smiling. You're the one who's crazy.
Hold that still. I can't see that. Is this your car?
Yes, it is. And you're trying to say I stole my own car because you're jealous?
Yeah.
Is that what
I don't
that's
think
about?
so. You wait for me right here, okay?
You're jealous?
Citation. All you need to do is your signature. He's only citing you for using your cell phone while you're driving. That's it.
Here you go, ma'am. Sign inside the red box right
For
there.
him being a Mexican racist. What is that name? Gasso?
It's on the citation, ma'am.
Here you go, Mexican racist. You're always going to be a Mexican. You'll never be white. You know that, right? You'll never be white, which is what you really want to be.
There you
wanna
go,
be
dear.
White.
Have a good day.
You want to be white so bad.
There you go, dear.
Despicable human being. I mean, I'm exempting, murderers and rapists, but as human beings go, that's the worst. She's the lowest of the low. Teaching, stupid college students in LA and accusing the man of murder and being a racist when he cut her a break. She got a ticket for using her cell phone, which is great, but he could have given her other citations and didn't. She didn't have her license. I mean, he gave her a break. Could not have been more professional. I'm glad he released the tape. You know what's going to happen, by the way? He's going to get disciplined for recording himself or something. They'll come up with something he did, just like they always do. Blame the cops. See, I blame, obviously, this person, this grown-up. She has another name, by the way, if you want to follow her on Twitter, on Facebook. It's Callie Cross with a K, Kross, tweeting and Facebook and all about reparations and Black Lives Matter, and just the worst of the worst, just total, tweeting about the evil police and all that in LA. Just an awful, awful person. But I blame the aforementioned Ayanna Pressley and others, Ibrahim Kendi, the other race hustlers, the other race baiters who have a real impact. I mean, there's real animosity towards cops out there, as we talked about yesterday, and I've been tweeting about it. We see all the video of people mocking police, attacking police verbally, and videotaping them and trying to bait them into some kind of debate, skirmish, and going with that. We see cops like the one who mocked Lebron. He gets suspended. He gets disciplined for just trying to be funny. It was a pretty entertaining video, but that's the atmosphere which has been created by my despicable congressperson, Ayanna Pressley, who 2 weeks ago or a week ago said the cops in America have murdered 70 people since the verdict in the George Floyd trial, which is only 2 weeks, which is a flat out lie, but it doesn't matter. As long as you're Ayanna Pressley, you never have to apologize. You never have to explain. Nobody follows it up. Nobody asks her, what are you talking about here? She lied about the panic button in her office being disabled before the January 6th riots. Absolute lie, but nobody cares. Obviously, the Globe carries her water. The other media people are afraid of her. You're going to see that tomorrow. You're going to see that tomorrow, the way they cover this rally in Hopkinton. If they cover it at all, they'll take it seriously. They shouldn't. I mean, they should mock and ridicule these people who are just the worst kind of opportunists. They won't do that. They will treat it, again, like Monica Cannon Grant, some respected, civil rights leader, when she's nothing but a scam artist, as we know, as Turtle Boy has chronicled for a long time. These people should be mocked. They should be ridiculed. This is terrible what they're doing. They're using the mother of this child who took her own life. They're using the child. They're using the deceased 16-year-old who clearly was troubled, who clearly had a bad time. I mean, she was bullied. She took her own life. It's tragic beyond words. I feel bad for a mother who's being used and playing into this charade. Mikayla Miller's mother, I'm not going to criticize her, but the people who are using her, beginning with Monica Cannon Grant and the whole bunch, Ayanna Pressley, Joe Curtatone, all these politicians who are exploiting this situation should be ashamed. It's disgusting. But we will keep track of that situation tomorrow. We'll have Turtle Boy in here to talk about it, give us the latest on what did I say her name was again? I don't forget this worst person in the world. She's got a few names, but Callie Jenkins.
I'm going to try to shake him down and see how he gets this information, because it literally makes me think there is only one Turtle Boy, not just obviously in Massachusetts, but in the country, because it makes me think somebody from the police department leaked it to him, because I honestly don't know where he would get it. Right?
He got. If you haven't seen it yet, check out it at whatever it was, tbdailynews.com, or follow Turtle Boy on Twitter, because he has many photos of the woman. The Fox News story, which was broken by this reporter Bill Malugan, blurs out her face and blurs out the kid in the car, her kid, that poor child. They don't give her identity, and they don't even let you see her face. Well, Turtle Boy goes to work, gets online, starts creeping, finds all kinds of photos, and finds the unedited video where you could see her berating the cop without her face being blurred out. Now, Bill Malugan says he knows her identity. He said this on Fox, but he's withholding it for whatever reason. He has not decided to release her name and her identity, which I assume he will at some point. Why not? Why protect her? Well, you don't have to worry about that if you follow Turtle Boy. You can see it all there. You can see the unedited videotape where they're berating this poor cop, calling him a murderer. It's so bizarre because he doesn't do or say anything to precipitate it. He just walks up to the car innocently because she is a danger to people on the road, talking on her cell phone while driving. They should pull over more people for this. They should cite more people for this. It's not taken nearly seriously enough. I've told my story before, but I almost got killed by a 16-year-old kid a couple of years ago driving an 18-year-old car. I got T-boned up in Maine. I mean, hit just in front of my driver's side door. If it was 3 feet back, I wouldn't be here. But she totaled my car. I'm convinced she didn't hit the brakes. I was convinced she was on the phone. And I asked the cop who was there doing the little investigation. I said, she was on the phone. I mean, obviously she didn't touch her brakes. She didn't even slow down. He says, yeah, whatever. I go, I mean, don't you investigate that? He said, only if there's a fatality. I go, so if I died, you would get her cell phone records or grab her phone? And he said, yeah, we don't really bother with it unless there's a fatality. So I couldn't prove she was talking on the phone, even though I'm 100% convinced she was talking on the phone, probably looking in the mirror at herself talking on the phone, but the cops didn't care because I didn't die. So anyway, we don't take it seriously enough. This cop did. Good for him for citing, he's got 3 different names. I'm not even sure which is the official name. Kalunda Jenkins or Kalunda Ray Awamuzu, professor, who is the worst person, the worst human being, the worst mother, the worst teacher in America. You can read all about it. You can see all about it at TB Daily News, and we'll fill in some blanks tomorrow when Turtle Boy is here. Couple more things
Hey, I got
before I
breaking news, by the way. I know we're not live right now, but I got breaking news for you that Facebook, their oversight board, is upholding the decision to ban Donald Trump.
No.
So now I do think that the decision will be revisited in 6 months, it appears, but there is a law. I haven't gotten through the whole thing yet, but
It's so
you will not be seeing
so
Donald
bizarre
Trump.
when you sit there on Twitter and you see people like this, people like Monica Cannon Grant or Kalunda Jenkins, or you see whatever Farrakhan, or you see the worst. You see just the mullahs in Tehran. People who support whatever Hitler. The Nazi can be on Facebook, can be on Twitter, but the former president of the United States cannot. It's so bizarre that everybody can't agree that that's wrong, that there are people on the left, and we've talked about it many, many times. Glenn Greenwald, if you don't follow him, you should, because he writes about this every day, how insane it is that the alleged liberals, now support big tech tyranny. They now support censorship. They support silencing of dissent. It is the most disturbing development of the last year. Even with the coronavirus, nothing is more frightening than the support, the anti-free speech, the anti-First Amendment sentiment out there from the media mostly, but big tech and lots of people, voters, Americans, who think it's A-OK to just ban people because they don't like them. I mean, Trump's not, committing crimes. You don't have to like him, but he should have a right to, I don't know, tweet. But he's going to come up with his own platform. I'm sure it's going to be.
What's more likely to inspire violence of people to go on social media and post about an election possibly being stolen from you, or to go on television and I guess social media at the same time and say that cops have murdered 70 people in the last week? Like what would inspire you to take physical action? Like, which one is more likely to do so? I would say the latter would probably be more likely to cause physical action or drive people to take physical action. That's
it's true. It's amazing that like LeBron James doxed a cop, essentially said, go get him, to his 50 million followers. Not only is there no suspension or really no blowback, he doesn't, no one at Nike says anything, no one at the NBA. Twitter doesn't even put a warning. I mean, if Trump did that to anyone, it could be the worst person. It could be, as a criminal. If he said, go get him, immediately it'd be warnings and lights flashing and bans and suspensions. But it's okay for LeBron James to do it. It's okay for Ayanna Pressley to essentially slander, defame every cop in the country, which says cops have murdered 70 people in the last 2 weeks. A blatant lie. It used to be, I remember the days, I'm old enough to remember when the media called out politicians who lied. Now you can't, lie about whatever, your crowd size, obviously, or you're a despicable liar. But you can lie about the cops. You can say cops are murdering people. You could put a target on the backs of police officers, and it's okay if you're the right, if you're on the right side of the political spectrum. You can say anything. I don't know what Ayanna Pressley has to say to get called out by anyone in the media. I guess she's not a big enough name to make it, on Tucker, on Laura Ingraham or whatever. And obviously everybody on the left supports her. The Globe lies, more than anyone. So they're out in bed. They don't mind if you lie to advance the political agenda. But you would think somebody would say, Ayanna, could you give us some examples of these 70 police officers who have murdered people? And if she says Micaiah Bryant, then it's over. She's lying. She's just another race-baiting hustler. But answer me this: when cops pay a price, and in this case, it's just verbal abuse. But when someone takes a shot at the cop, like they did last year, the 2 cops in LA sitting in the cruiser, bang in the back of the head, don't we blame the people who fueled this fire, who fanned these flames, who made the cops out to be racist murderers, killing 70 people in a week? The person who made that claim, who told that lie, has to be held responsible when there is backlash against the police. When someone calls this good cop, this innocent cop in LA, a murderer, I mean, someone put that idea in this idiot's head. I say it's, the whole cast of, Sharpton and Benjamin Crump and Ayanna Pressley lying about the police. And again, Ayanna Pressley will come home and she'll have a police escort. She'll be at the airport and have a police escort. She'll be in the Capitol under siege by the insurrectionists, and she'll be protected by the cops. And yet she can turn around and say all cops are evil. They're all bastards. That's her sentiment. And if you want to think that, that's fine. But there has to be some pushback. Somebody has to say, show us, tell us. Can I see the panic button that was destroyed by the Capitol Police to make you more vulnerable, to make you, to put your life in danger? Could you show me that? Could I take a picture of it? Could you tell me the names of just some of the 70 cops who've murdered people in the last week? We would like to investigate, but you won't. You could do anything, say anything, as long as you're, in with the right crowd. And I don't think Ayanna Pressley will be there tomorrow with Black Lives Matter in Hopkinton, but she will tweet her support. She'll say something supportive of these horrible people like Monica Cannon Grant, who are exploiting this child, the death of this child. It's despicable. It's disgusting. But the coverage will be largely, positive, or at least neutral. There'll be no criticism. There'll be no real spotlight saying, why are you doing this? They investigated. It's clear there were no other kids around her when she died. It's clear she committed suicide. It's awful. It's tragic. But why are you using her mother? Is it a fundraising scheme? It's just disgusting. And we all know it's disgusting. I just wish more people would call it out. Fortunately, our guy, Turtle Boy, is leading the charge, and we'll have all the details on this tomorrow. He'll fill in the blanks. It will be good, because this is one of the most disgusting things. I mean, if it were true, just imagine this, if it were true that she was lynched by a bunch of other kids, if that were the story, it would be the biggest story in the world. And I'm not kidding. It's in Hopkinton, Mass. The poor girl died last month, killed herself. She's going through a tough time. It's awful. It's tragic. Maybe there's a story there. Maybe the lockdown, the shutdowns contribute to it. Maybe it's just bad kids bullying another kid for whatever reason. There might be a really compelling story there, but they're going to lie because that's the way to get attention. And if they were right, if Monica Cannon Grant were right, if Ibrahim Kendi were right, it would be the biggest story in the world. I'm serious. The world, not the state, not New England, not America. Though it would be George Floyd all over again. But
I don't even get it, though. Like, what are they rallying for? I mean, weren't they just rallying for more investigation into
yes,
and that's what's happening. But that's what's happening.
True. That's right.
Like what's her name? Marion Ryan came out yesterday and said that's what she's going to do. So the DA said that. So I don't really know what
this would be like. The Chauvin trial. There would be riots. There'd be looting. There'd be rallies. There'd be international press. There would be cameras from everywhere descending on the starting line of the marathon where this rally is. It would be huge. But everybody knows if they do a little bit of homework, it's just a ruse. It's just a show. They had a meeting last night. Did we hear from the Board of Selectmen who don't?
Others have.
Yes, I can. Sorry, that's just point. Yes, I can play a little bit of this too. And Monica Cannon Grant makes an appearance in this news report.
Oh, does she?
So,
good.
Yeah, of course she does.
Claimed she was murdered.
Mikayla was found tied to a tree, standing on her feet with a belt wrapped around her neck.
The night before her death, investigators say Mikayla had an altercation with 4 other teens, later telling police she had been assaulted. But the DA says cell phone data and surveillance camera evidence indicates they were not in the area when Mikayla died.
By implying some of these wretched implications, it has turned our town into a circus.
Tonight, the select board held an emergency.
I was a member of the select board there, and yeah,
Well,
I'd say,
good for him. And he's
just
right.
started.
He's right. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a circus. You know why? Because people are wherever they are in their neighborhood, in their town. They look at these other rallies, whether it's Minneapolis or Kenosha or Seattle, and they say, I want to do that someday. I want to, get out there and protest and have my voice heard. And they might not say, is this a worthy cause? Is this woman, Monica Cannon Grant, telling the truth? They'll just say, no, I want to, demand justice. They don't have to look too deeply into the story to just say, I'm going to go out in the street and demand they meet our demands. It's just too bad for Hopkinton that this scam artist, this group of grifters is coming to town, but it's not going to be pretty, but hopefully they won't get any bigger. Hopefully they won't get any more people to buy into their lies, but we shall see. Okay, a couple more things before we get to Shill. Curt Schilling is going to join us momentarily. I don't want to play it because it's 3 minutes long, but credit where credit's due. Caitlyn Jenner put out her first ad in her campaign for governor, and it was spectacular. again, too long, but she does a really good job of pointing out how California has gone to crap, and somebody has to save it. It makes you think, because it costs a lot of money, time, and energy to put this together, that she's a real candidate, which is unbelievable. She's a real candidate, so she'll be on the stump. She'll be campaigning. It's going to be wild, and I give her credit for courage because she came out against biological boys kicking ass in girls' sports. She defended girls, which you don't hear. Girls are forgotten. Girls are neglected. Nobody cares about girls anymore, at least not, the political elites don't care about girls. Caitlyn Jenner came out squarely in defense of girls because Caitlyn Jenner knows that transgender girls have a real advantage. That's all she said. It's just not fair. And I remember when liberals used to care about fairness, Caitlyn Jenner made it clear that trans girls playing girls sports isn't fair. That took guts. Probably, lost her a lot of friends, but it took guts. LeBron James tweeted an apology, Colin. Did you see that?
I did
He
see
tweeted
that.
an apology. I'm impressed. Let me check out the details on this. He tweeted an apology to Mikayla Bryant. What a fool. I mean, honest to God, he is just the biggest douche. He says he fueled the wrong conversation about Mikayla Bryant, and I owe it to her and the movement to change it. Not a word about the cop, the heroic cop. Not a word about Nicholas Reardon. Just the wrong conversation. And he linked to I think it was a Vox story critical of Reardon and the cop for saving the girl in Pink's life. LeBron James is not only an a-hole, but a stubborn, cowardly a-hole. Doesn't the guts to admit he was wrong, that Nicholas Reardon was right, and the girl in Pink, who we haven't heard from yet, have we? She has not spoken. That'll be a big get if you're whoever, if you're I don't know, cable news person out there. That would be a big get. Get the girl in pink. Get her to wear pink so everyone remembers her. Get her to say, "Thank you, Officer Reardon. That was heroic. You saved my life." I guess I give her credit for not going the other way because I know that Chauvin, Crump, and company were pressuring her to turn on the cop who saved her life. At least she hasn't done that yet, but she hasn't spoken yet. I'd be curious to hear from her because she'd be dead. She'd be dead if not for Nicholas Reardon and scumbags like LeBron can't just come out and say it. We don't have the time for this, but we're going to do it another day because, the Derek Chauvin trial was literally the biggest trial in this country. I believe I would say since O.J. Simpson. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the biggest trial in a generation, watched by everyone around the world. Clearly, everybody got to see the evidence. Most people were okay with Chauvin going away, even though they didn't seem to follow the law in every case. And now we know they're going to do it all over again because at least one juror. By the way, this is the first juror, besides the alternate, to come out and speak publicly about their feelings. And he said they didn't feel pressure by the mob to come up with. He said it was just a very intense and exhausting experience, but it wasn't because the mob was demanding a certain verdict. He lied. He said he didn't go to police brutality rallies. There are pictures of him there. Not only are there pictures, he's wearing a T-shirt about George Floyd with saying, "Get your knee off my neck." Clearly an activist, a BLM supporter who lied. That to me, and I'm no lawyer, but I've watched lots of Law and Order and read lots of Grisham books. This is the classic case of a reason to overturn the verdict, to start all over again. Yep. And I realized it was a unanimous verdict that only took 10 hours for them to reach. But A, he's might not be the only one who went in there with an agenda. And B, what if he was very influential? What if he was convincing others to vote with him? I mean, we know it was unanimous. What if we found out that he was the only one in there that went in there determined to convict Chauvin, and he just spent hours convincing everybody else to vote with him, and he did. Then you'd say, clearly that's wrong. This guy lied. On top of that, they didn't change the venue when everyone knows they should have changed the venue. They didn't sequester the jury until the end when everyone knows they should have sequestered the jury. You can despise Chauvin. He seems like a bad guy, but you can't say he got a fair trial. And the guy, the juror, do we have his name, by the way, the juror, the one juror who spoke, who is a BLM guy with the T-shirt?
Brandon Mitchell. Yep.
Oh, that's right, Brandon Mitchell. Brandon Mitchell should be charged in this case with a crime. It is a crime. And I'll tell you why it's a very serious crime, because not only was this the biggest trial in this country in a generation, but it was a very expensive trial. Let's be honest. If you added it all up in the end, this cost millions. And because of Brandon Mitchell, they're going to have to do it all over again. This is a serious crime. He should be charged. He should be tried, convicted if he's guilty of this. And he sure as hell looks it. When you look at him with his BLM T-shirt, he clearly lied.
The first question, did you or someone close to you participate in any of the demonstrations or marches against police brutality that took place in Minneapolis after George Floyd's death? He answered no, because it wasn't in Minneapolis. He was wearing a T-shirt that said, get your knee off our necks. Isn't that what the saying of the T-shirt was?
Yes, and it's a very colorful T-shirt, and there's a picture of him at the at the rally. I mean, you can't say, oh wait, it was not in this city, it was in that city, or it was in whatever, St. Paul, and say, clearly it wasn't lying. He was lying, and he had all kinds of preconceived thoughts and opinions on this trial. He clearly wasn't an impartial juror. Nobody could say he is. Nobody could say he was. I mean, if you're going to be honest, you say we start all over again. Clearly, it was a great case by the prosecution. They got the conviction pretty quickly. They'll probably do it again, but they got to do it again. There's no other way around it. This guy is a liar. I mean, I'm looking at that picture of him tweeted out by I think it's his cousin, or is it his cousin or his uncle or his nephew, with the picture. And there's a picture of Martin Luther King, and it says, "Get your knee off our necks, BLM."
Yep.
A Black Lives Matter hat, a Black Lives Matter shirt. A guy who went to rallies. He misrepresented himself. There's no debate there. He lied. So yes, if there is an appeal and an honest judge looks at this, of course he vacates the conviction and starts over, and then we do it all over again. And it's all the fault of this guy. And by the way, this is again just the first of 12. There's one alternate juror who said they were afraid of the mob. She didn't matter. This guy did. What if there's 5 more like him? What if there's 6, 7, 8 more like him? I mean, you can't say that was a fair trial. So Chauvin goes again, and you know what I'm going to predict? He takes the stand, because he got smoked in this trial. It wasn't even close. Nobody liked him. Nobody believed him. His lawyer did the best he could. It didn't work. They need to change strategy. That will be wild, watching him take the stand. But the thing took weeks, and preparation was months and months and months. That's all going to happen again, because this liar, Brandon Mitchell, I mean, how could people not be pissed at him? If some old, widow or housewife or, 20-year-old kid who was genuinely ignorant of the facts of the case and genuinely impartial sat in that seat, he would have got the conviction. It'd be over. Chauvin would be gone. But because this guy lied his way on the jury, you got to do it all over again. He's a bad guy. But anyway, we'll follow that, because it's going to get ugly. I mean, I don't even know how you argue against a new trial when you read and hear about Brandon Mitchell. But we will stay on top of that as well, and we'll get into all that with Turtle Boy tomorrow and follow the rally, the protest in Hopkinton, which is going to be disgusting. But today we are joined by Curt Schilling, who got out of Dodge, got out of New England. I know he threatened to a few weeks ago. I didn't realize till just now that he actually had escaped New England. We'll talk to Schill about his new life down south in a very red state among his people. Joining us now is MLB legend, should be Hall of Famer, Curt Schilling, former New Englander. You'll always be like a New England legend, obviously, because of the World Series and the Bloody Sock, but you're no longer a New Englander. I want to get to a lot of stuff. I want to get to Lebron MLB and everything else. But first, I have to hear this story. I saw it on Twitter. I mentioned one day that you are out of, you're tired of New England, and you up and moved. You moved to Tennessee. God bless you. I'm jealous. What's it like, Curt?
Well, it's heaven on earth. It is. It really is. I had mentioned that the USA Today had reached out to me about a month or two ago about the bloody sock thing, and the guy that was writing the article found out that I was moving. We had talked, and the article actually turned into Curt Schilling's leaving New England because people aren't nice. And my comment was that since I retired, New England had not been a pleasant experience for my family or I. It outside of Medfield's circle of friends, it was not a good experience for my family, for my kids, and I wanted to be happy. I wanted to be around good people, and I'm there. This is everything I dreamed it would be and more. It used to be I'd have to wake up to Dan Shaughnessy writing some bitter article about me being a blowhard, and now my biggest dilemma is what to fill the goat bottle with to bottle feed a goat. So it's good.
I saw you didn't just move yourself. You moved the whole farm down there, and we've seen some of the videos of you tending to your animals. But I got to ask, since I'm still here, what pushed you over the edge? It's gotten worse. I will give you that. It's gotten more intense. It's gotten more, confrontational up here. Maybe it's the pandemic and COVID and the lockdown and everything else. But what pushed you over the edge? What sent you out of here?
I think I got pushed over the edge a while ago. Our youngest son, who wants to be an NHL goalie, was in senior year of high school. He still is, and is getting ready to graduate. And I looked around, and Sean and I were talking, and there was no reason to remain there. First of all, there's no financial. I'm retired, so as far as when the election happened, I was pro Trump and still am. Not for me, because it really wasn't going to impact me in any way, but for my kids and their future. And it's turned out to be the absolute shitstorm we all thought it would be, and worse. And I didn't want to be in a place. Well, I guess when I said nice people, people here were raised like I was raised. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Respect for everybody else. Your color, your sexual orientation, none of that stuff matters. Are you a law-abiding citizen? Yes. Okay. Everything's fine. That's the America I grew up with. That's how I was raised. And that doesn't exist in New England. In addition to the fact that our property tax went from, I think, $24,000 a year to $1,500. And I now have 33 acres and an enormous dream home. And, it was just a combination of things. And when I said nice people, obviously I didn't mean the people that know me, like you, know me. That the Curt Schilling the media has created is a falsehood. That person doesn't actually exist. But people that don't know me treated me as if I was that person. And, that's their prerogative. But at the end of the day, I'm around people that are nice and kind, and I like being here, and people are respectful. They don't care who I am.
Right. And I always say, I've been surrounded by the people my whole life. I grew up here, went to high school, college, worked in journalism. So I've been surrounded by, now there would be Trump haters.
Right. But it's changed, right? But it's changed.
But no question. It's gotten more
because when you and I were growing up, Democrats were Democrats. They were left of center, and there was some social issues that we might have disagreed on or whatever. That no longer exists. There is no true Democrat anymore. Right. And this person on the other side is anti-America, anti-police, anti-constitution, anti-family values, anti-traditional values. And if you're pro any of those things, you're a racist.
Right.
And it's just boring. It's boring, it's mundane, and it's sad.
Did you get heckled or confronted in person, like everyone walking down the street?
No. The one thing I know about liberals is they don't have the guts to do the things they say on Twitter in person. Because if they did, and honestly, one of the reasons I know this has been its incredible success, even though I've only been here a couple of weeks, is I've been on Twitter, I think, twice.
Right.
You know, and the outpouring of, I got to tell you, the Twitter feedback was mind-numbing to me. The amount of support and people who, you know, apologized for New England treating my whatever was overwhelming and incredibly appreciated. And I made mention of that. But the fact of the matter is, our best friend actually is moving down here literally less than a quarter mile away from us.
Really?
I've actually talked to a couple other people in my life that are very dear friends who we're trying to get to move down here with us. I just want to be surrounded by people that I wake up and I can wake up and smile and be happy to be around.
I always say that to my wife when there'll be a story or whatever, there'll be a story of somebody harassing a cop. That's the big story today or this week. And you see these videos of people getting in cops' faces or whatever, defund the police things or riots. And I'll say, people who live around us, people in our families voted for that. It doesn't as much, it doesn't infuriate me as much as it boggles my mind.
But I got to the point where I was physically angry,
really,
at what I was seeing because of the disrespect. And I'm at a point now. I saw a tweet today or a Facebook post today that said, if you vote Democrat after all of this, you're a certified idiot. And I back up and say, if you voted Democrat this time around and you're a grown adult, what's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And we're getting, I mean, we're in a country where a group of people is voting to defund the police, and then the city council has a meeting and they're pissed about the response times of law enforcement to 911 calls.
Right.
Like, that's happening. That's real. And you couldn't even make a movie about this stuff because people wouldn't believe it.
Like Curt, my congresswoman is Ayanna Pressley. I said, I'm going to say this every day. People are sick of it who listen. She said the other day that since the George Floyd verdict 2 weeks ago, 70 people have been murdered by police officers in this country. 70. And no one cares. No one says a word. No one calls her out. They just say, oh, that's too bad. She can lie about the cops. And, you know, when she says it, it fuels the fire. There's more animosity, more vitriol toward the cops. And it's like, it's her fault. It's on her. Well, it's on Al
Gerry,
Sharpton. It's on Liz Warren. They're the ones saying these cops are racist.
This is why, if you remember the Adam Jones incident?
Sure, of course I do.
Now, it never happened. And I came out and said that it never happened because there was just too much. Had it actually happened, there would have been an eyewitness. As it was, there was no eyewitness. Mike Lupica wrote an article about it, and his witness ended up being a kid who lied that he was sitting in the outfield section. He's actually sitting behind no plate. Mike Lupica didn't retract the article.
I believe it's still up there, Curt.
It is still up there. It is
a high school kid pranked Mike Lupica, and no one ever.
Mike Lupica didn't retract the article, so that goes on the docket of Boston being a racist city, and those are when you look at these fake hate crimes. I just heard the other day from somebody in Massachusetts that there was a report of a young black girl who was lynched.
Right, it's happening. It's happening tomorrow. Believe it or not, there's a vigil in Hopkinton.
Well, hold on a second. But Gerry, you know, if this young girl had been lynched,
it'd be the biggest story in the world.
It would be the biggest story on the planet. Right. And now, listen, I don't know the surrounding, but it happened over a month ago, apparently. And my first response to the person saying it was, are you sure they didn't commit suicide, or was this an actual? Because I know for a fact, just like if you yell the N-word at a Major League Baseball game, people are going to stand up and the social justice warriors are going to be everywhere. Well, none of that stuff happened. That's how you know it's a hoax.
You were like me. We got in some trouble, some hot water when we called Adam Jones out. Even though we waited, we asked the questions, we looked into it, we said, this doesn't add up. The Tory Hunter story was even more ridiculous. He said a bunch of kids were chanting the N-words and a bunch of grown-ups were cheering them on. Of course, that's nonsense. You know it, I know it. But nobody but, you and me and maybe one or two other people will even say it. The Red Sox, and I want to get to the Red Sox because they're the only team I've ever seen that always takes the word of a single accuser against their own fans. Their own fans. You and I know those fans. We know they didn't chant the N-word to Torrey Hunter. We know that's ridiculous. There'd be, like you said, there'd be 100 people calling him out, calling security, pointing at him, calling the Globe for crying out loud.
What happened? Hey, hold on one second, Gerry. The night after the Adam Jones incident, someone actually did say it behind the dugout.
Out like that.
They got called out immediately, and the police security escorted them out of the stadium.
Right. Which is what happens. What happens when that happens? So the Torrey Hunter story is ridiculous. We all know it. The Red Sox come out, back up Torrey Hunter, and condemn their own fans. It's maddening, and it's why so many people can't stand this Red Sox ownership, even though they've won 4 World Series. I was going to ask you. You seem to be, mending the fences. You made an appearance at Fenway. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And it seemed like you were back, in the good graces and everything was okay. I'm going to guess you don't feel that way anymore.
Well, I've never felt that way. The ownership of this team, my dad, God bless him, I think raised me the right way. And my dad was unbelievably a man of few words, and his highest compliment was always, "That's good people," and his worst compliment was, "That's a bad person." And all I can tell you is that the 2 men that run that team are really bad people. And what they did to me and my family in my final year in Boston I've forgiven them. But I'll never ever forget what they did. I hesitate to say it like this. I bled for them, and I did things to my body that you shouldn't do, because I got paid to win baseball games, not play. I got paid to win baseball games. I was brought there to help win a World Series, and I did everything I could possibly do, and beyond some things physically I probably should have done, but I would do again because of the 24 guys I suited up with. And I've always believed in the uniform and giving everything you can to the organization that cuts your paycheck. And I was no different there, and the way they treated me on the way out was something I'll never, ever forget.
All right, what'd they do?
So, if you remember my last year in 08, 07, after we won the World Series, I became a free agent for about 48 hours. And it was funny because if you remember early in my career, Ed Wade, the general manager of the Phillies, said, Curt's a horse every 5th day, and every four days in between, he's a horse's ass.
Right.
And my response was, well, who's Ed Wade? What has Ed Wade ever done? Why would Ed Wade's opinion even matter? But it was because Ed Wade didn't do anything as a GM and all this other stuff. But I was the first call I got was from Ed Wade as a free agent. He was in Houston. He's like, "Hey, I want you to come play for me." I'm like, "Oh yeah. This is funny." And I had a 2-year deal on the table for a significant amount of money. And I called Theo. I wanted to finish in Boston. I felt horrible about 07 in the sense that I was hurt on and off all year. I didn't feel like I earned my paycheck, and I wanted to come back. And I came back. I signed a 1-year deal for $8 million. It was a significant pay cut. About a month after I signed the deal, I went in, had my physical. Everything got done. I went in and had my physical, and my arm was after the physical. I was playing catch. My arm was bothering me, but I checked out. I passed the physical and all that other stuff, and I was having trouble. And I went to see Dr. Gill at the time, they said I had some tendonitis, and I went to actually see Dr. Morgan, the man who'd been operating on me for the last 30 years, and he told me that I had what's called my bicep was rotting at the connection where it connects up into the shoulder. The tissue was rotting away, and basically the only way to fix that is to go in there and detach the bicep and then reattach it underneath your arm. Ooh. And it's called a bicep. It's something that's been very rarely done ever. But he said, 6 months and you're back good as new. The Red Sox didn't want me to do this. They also said that since I was taking painkillers, that I lied to them about my health. And basically, you remember when Tito left, somebody from the front office leaked the story about him. Oh yeah. They threatened to do the same thing. They threatened to do the same thing to me. Oh. If I didn't renegotiate my contract and take money off my contract, and they were not sure how they were going to be able to handle the public part of this. And so at the time, we had an arbitration hearing. We had Major League Baseball came in. I sat across the table from Mr. Werner, Mr. Lucchino, Mr. Henry, Theo Epstein, and Rob Manfred. And it was my lawyer and I, and I said to, first of all, I couldn't believe this was happening. that they thought that I lied to them, number one. And I said to them, I said, listen, you guys sit up here in this ivory tower, not understanding the cost some of us pay to play this game. I said, and I paid the cost, and I'd pay it again. I said, but I mean, I never misrepresented anything in this. And it turned out that after I said vote Bush in 2004, they hated my guts.
Right.
And so they basically threatened to tell everybody that I was addicted to painkillers. I had lied and got a contract from them if I didn't take a renegotiated contract, which is why they asked for, when we settled, they asked for a 5-year NDA.
Oh.
And because 5 years is the time between then and the Hall of Fame vote, I guess. And they figured I wouldn't say anything after that. I mean, sadly, they didn't know me because it's not I mean, I was taking painkillers at a level that was incredibly unhealthy all through that time from 2004 on. I mean, every time I made a start, I had a shot of Toradol, and I didn't take painkillers when I pitched, but it was a matter of just getting back up on the field. And, I'm a big guy. So eventually, anybody that's taken painkillers to any extent understands you start to build up immunity. You have to take more and you have to take more. And I was taking more and more, and I was getting whatever I needed from the team at the time.
Were you addicted to painkillers?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But the team was all in. Like, that was never an issue. I mean, from 2004 to 2008, I got what I needed whenever I needed it.
What about when you were home, day off with the wife?
Whatever I needed, I got. That there was never any criteria for getting a prescription. And but again, I managed it in the sense that I signed the deal with them. I was healthy. I was fine. I took my physical, passed everything, and this came up after. And this was, and I was crushed. Because it blew up my mind and my image of what this was all about, right? It's a business, and I get it. But you always take care of your own. And I felt like I had done some things in that organization to deserve the respect of the ownership. And it was very clear. They did those two gutless cowards sat across from me and didn't open their mouths the entire hearing.
We're talking John Henry and Werner?
Tom Werner. Not once did they say a word to me. And I spoke directly to them.
Did you?
And they didn't respond to me.
I'm not surprised. Did you? I've been with you. You don't even drink much.
No.
When did you give up the painkillers?
I've been on a pain management program now for almost a decade. I see somebody every month. And I got, that's how I have gone about it. But it took me a while. I went through withdrawal when I got throat cancer because I went into the hospital and I had to stop taking them. And so there was a period of time that was just a nightmare during that time. But I mean, it's like I said, it's obviously it's changed now, but it's the price that some guy, and it's honestly, Gerry, I think about the NFL and I remember North Dallas 40 and everything about that was spot on. And this is a multi-billion-dollar business.
Were you, like Nick Nolte, were supposed to set an example for young players by going out there hurt?
Well, but see, here I don't know how to put this. I was raised old school in the sense that my number one statistic was always innings. Like that was the only stat that ever mattered to me, because if I pitched my innings, all the other numbers would be where they needed to be. So as the ace of the staff, I had to lead the team in innings pitched every year. That was what the ace did. And so I took a lot of pride in taking the ball every fifth day. And that's why 2007 was such a challenge and so painful for me, because I had to, the game's a nightmare. Anytime you see a guy hurt in spring training who plays catch up, it's a nightmare season, because you can't succeed consistently in big league baseball if every 4 days between starts, you're just trying to survive to the next game. Instead of, for me, when I was healthy in 2004, it was pitch on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was all about study, preparation, getting ready for my next start. When that changes to, I just got to physically be able to get out on the mound 5 days from now, the entire mindset changes and you're just playing a survival game.
When you're not getting a shot of Toradol, in what form do painkillers come, and do you get those from the team as well?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like
Vicodin was Yeah. I mean, it's funny. People, I have a headache or an ache or pain. People are like, oh, take some Tylenol. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Heroin is basically tic-tac-toe with somebody that's using Vicodin into the levels you use it.
Do you think if you were a good liberal, I don't know, like Red Sox co-owner LeBron James, do you think things would have gone differently for you?
Absolutely.
Not just with the team, but with the region.
Everything.
With the media, obviously.
Everything would have been.
We
different.
wouldn't be friends.
Right. No, but the difference is I wouldn't be able to sleep well at night with myself right now.
Right. I mean, you must have laughed like I did when they made a big announcement, like it was a great news that LeBron James was now part owner of the Red Sox.
But here's the thing. I thought it was cool. Like I love the thought of Tiger Woods buying a franchise or anybody. I don't care. I think that's great. Derek Jeter. I think that's really cool because I think that there are some players who have the ability, like a Jason Varitek, to do something other than catch and be a benefit to an organization. The problem is that when you have somebody as ignorant and stupid as LeBron James, and they have that big of a platform, they do far more damage than they do help. And he represents the Boston Red Sox and all the things that he says and does. And last I looked, his last tweet was threatening a police officer's life.
Right. And I said this in a show last week. I've never seen anyone the equivalent of LeBron on the other side. And there aren't many people as you, and I couldn't think of, Aubrey Huff. There's not many guys, outspoken right wingers. But if someone like you or someone did what he did, doxed a cop, by the way, we didn't even know his identity until LeBron sent a picture and said, "You're next," threatening a cop, not for doing something wrong, for saving the life of a young black woman. That's what he did. It's the most egregious thing I've ever seen a professional athlete do. It really is. And what makes it worse is there are no repercussions. The league does nothing. Nike does nothing. The media does nothing. He doesn't get suspended from Twitter. Nothing happens.
All you have to do, you want to know what would happen? Look at Hunter Biden and Rudy Giuliani.
Right.
I mean, literally, what if you listen to Giuliani and you listen to Dershowitz, what happened to Rudy Giuliani? It was one of the most unconstitutional things our government's ever done.
And what he did by saying, "There's Hunter's laptop, a hard drive, want it?" And they say no.
Everything. I mean, you're hearing former prosecuting attorneys saying to sign a search warrant, I have to give the judge reason to believe I have probable cause that this person committed a crime.
Right.
And they had none of that. And I was looking at my father-in-law and I said, I don't think the common citizen is as scared about this story as they should be. Because this is the Department of Justice weaponized Russia collusion on steroids.
I say this, people always say, the country's more divided than ever, more partisan. And I say, generally, my answer is that's okay. We're supposed to be divided. It's supposed to be all on the same team. But here's how divided we are, that on one side, you can have something this outrageous, raiding the lawyer of a president and taking his communication and taking his information off the cloud and trying to trap him. And the other side says nothing. I mean, that is scary with no other than Dershowitz.
Well, it used to be that we were both on opposite sides of the fence, but we were all pro-American.
We were pro-free speech. Those days are over. We were pro-First Amendment.
And now we've drawn sides, and the Constitution is the barrier between the two sides. I mean, you've got one side saying it's a malleable document that, and as Joe has said a couple times, no amendment is ironclad. Well, no, actually they are. I mean, they can be amended, but they're not. It's not hard to interpret.
Right. No amendment is absolute.
Right. And it's also why you're seeing a move to get a 51st state, a move to expand the Supreme Court, because they hate the Constitution. They hate the Constitution the way conservative judges interpret it.
Right. It's definitely an obstacle for their agenda. And I think what you're seeing is everything's accelerated because they have 2 years, year and a half now, because they know they're going to lose the House, maybe the Senate, maybe certainly the White House if it's Kamala against Ron DeSantis. So they are going to pick up the pace in terms of transforming.
My problem now is, Gerry, and the reason I want to say there's a countrywide depression in a sense. You could feel it. Is some of the stuff that's going to happen and is happening is irreparable. the borders opening in 10 to 20 to 30 million, you're not going to be able to undo that. The tens of thousands of small businesses that are destroyed on a weekly basis in this country, those aren't coming back. And all of these riots, they're burning down their own towns. Go back and look at Ferguson. Take a look at what Ferguson looks like today as opposed to before the riots. They burned their own places down. People aren't going to rebuild there.
I've seen Minneapolis almost a year later. It's nothing. It's so depressing.
It's going to look like Detroit very, very soon.
Right. And I mean, kids who didn't go to school. Kids who didn't go to school for a year. You don't just get that back. You don't just go to school.
That to me is probably the biggest crime in the sense that a generation of kids have been irreparably harmed. But the biggest miss of the entire last 24 months was we should have gutted the education system, gutted it, and completely redone how we educate our kids. And the teachers union's so powerful. You're watching, like I said, these kids, I haven't seen, I'm in Tennessee. I've seen 15 masks since I've been here. I haven't seen anybody wearing one. And I don't hear any outbreaks down here. Kids are all attending school full 5 days a week, 7 to 2.
Sports.
Well, and I just saw Brookline's getting ready to go back to outdoor mandating outdoor masks.
Right. They will not agree with the rest of the
Same country though, right? I mean, this is the same. And you're looking at California where parents are basically literally, I saw a video of a parent just going nuts at the school board. And they said that after that meeting, a school board person texted another person on the school board saying, "We are at war with the parents."
Consider this. I mean, you have all this evidence. It's been a year, Curt, since they've locked down many states, blue states. That's a lot of evidence. That's a year. And still, Michigan is, doubling down on their lockdowns. Towns like Brookline are saying, no, we have to stay locked down. We have to keep the masks. Yeah. How much evidence do you need?
Well, 2 months ago,
Florida and Texas and Tennessee.
When it passed 550,000, which, by the way, the media is never reluctant to share that number. When it passed 550,000, and the statistic at the time was only 6%. And now, again, I caveat this, even though I despise it. Of course, any death is one too many. Okay. But the side and argument for gun control and against the death penalty, I mean, give me a break. But the fact of the matter is only 6% of the people had actually died purely from COVID.
Right.
The 540,000 people, only 6% had died. And here's the number for the teachers union I want to ask. In 2020, 47 kids ages 5 to 15 died of COVID, 47 nationwide. 545 kids ages 5 to 14 committed suicide, which is like 11,000% increase in that age group.
Right. And it's like,
if Trump is responsible for the 57 COVID deaths of those kids, who's responsible for the 545 suicides?
And it's in drugs and alcohol and domestic abuse. There's things that Dr. Fauci never mentions. It doesn't seem to matter. More people have died of suicide than COVID in San Francisco. I mean, and it doesn't seem to matter.
Well, here's anybody. I guess the thing that I'm getting most frustrated about, Gerry, is here we're talking about things that we already know all of the answers to. Right? This was about power. This was about control. Listen, in a country where democracy, it reigns true and free election is at the core of who we are. How is it possible that Arizona's recount is exposed? I think the 3 days in, they said they had found potentially 250,000 fraudulent votes in a state won by 10,000. How is that not on the front of every single newspaper on the planet? Much less it's buried. I haven't heard anybody.
It's such a weird dynamic. Is there's one thing that's off limits. You can't have an opinion. You can obviously you're free to speak your mind, express yourself in this country. But right now, there's one thing you can't offer an opinion about. It's the legitimacy of an election. If you say, well, my opinion is whatever, X, you could get deplatformed. I mean, if you offer, I mean, it's just weird. You're not swearing, you're not defaming anyone, you're not, saying.
But see, this is what they do, Gerry. But remember, if you remember the last half of Trump's administration, every single news piece started off with, "Well, we know he's a racist." So, and our response was, I don't believe that. You're presupposing something that is not true. Oh, well, how can you say he's not a racist? And then you go back to the same. Well, I mean, why is he a racist? The lowest black unemployment in recorded history, more women employed than have ever been, prison reform, all of this other stuff, but it doesn't matter. And so when you realize that you're arguing with a side that doesn't use or need or want facts to back up their argument, you're arguing with people you're never going to win against. I just saw a Steven Crowder episode. He was talking with a young black college kid on campus, and he was talking about the unemployment numbers. And this is, I don't know if you remember, Neil Caboto had a young lady on last year. She was with this Million Student March. And she said, I want to tax the richest 1%, that same bullshit line you hear from them. And Neil said, hon, if you do that, you're not going to be able to fund these entitlements after 3 months. If you take every penny of every rich person in this country, you won't be able to fund them for more than 90 days. And her response was, I don't believe that.
Right.
Well, and that, so what do you do? How do you argue? How do you debate that? Well, the election wasn't a fraud. Well, yeah, it absolutely was a fraud. Well, no, it was. There's no chance it was. Okay, here's all this evidence. Well, I don't believe it.
But you're not allowed. You're not allowed to say I get evidence. You're not allowed to bring it up. I mean, they will literally take you off social media. That's the most chilling thing.
Talking to our kids about this election and how, America won because the hatred of Trump overcame, and the white systemic racism was overcome by love and joy of the most hateful, spiteful, exclusive group of human beings on this planet.
Right. And now the resistance is the people who align with big government, big tech, academia, Hollywood, the media. They're all on your side. You're no longer the resistance. I hate to break it to you, kid.
Listen, you can't make this stuff up. So this is one of the ultimate ironies of life right now. If you look at what's happening in the fast food industry, the automation is taking over, right? Silicon Valley is hard at work at creating that automation. While arguing for $15 an hour minimum wage, they're arguing to pay minimum wage $15 an hour to the jobs that they're eliminating with their automation.
It's almost as nutty as the Target in downtown Minneapolis, which got torched and looted.
Right.
Now they've rebuilt, and they've commissioned a mural that was painted outside of people rioting and looking. They did a mural in tribute to the people that destroyed the very store.
Nothing in this world says social justice like a pair of Air Jordans.
Hey, careful. I don't want to get deplatformed here.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, you know what? I try to keep a list of all the insane developments in this cancel culture we're in the last year. It's hard to keep up. I mean, you go from whatever, canceling Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben to Cleveland on Family Guy, to the guy getting fired in Sacramento for saying all lives matter. There's just a million things like that. Chris Harrison, the Bachelor guy who did nothing wrong. Mike Milbury did nothing wrong.
Right.
But I'm telling you, Curt, this could be, I don't want to say the worst or the craziest, but it could be the dumbest. Major League Baseball, what they did to Atlanta, what they did with the All-Star game, to me, and they did it quickly, was just the most cowardly thing and myopic, very short-sighted to say, we are going to placate the mob for the moment, pull the game out, just like in a matter of, 2 days, they pulled the game out of Atlanta, moved to Denver, and I'm not sure they ever recover from the hit they took from that. Their base, they're, the people, our age, a lot of white guys, a lot of conservatives are disgusted with Major League Baseball for that one symbolic move.
I got to tell you that there a lot of things have really. I haven't been watching. I can't watch. I really, honestly, I just can't. I mean, other than watching maybe a DeGrom start or a Scherzer start, it's really, really hard for me to do anything and watch anything pro sports. I'm really stunned. I was a player rep when Rob Manfred was assistant in MLB. I loved Rob Manfred. I thought he was an honest, forthcoming, forthright guy. He clearly is a politician in sheep's clothing. But I got to tell you, probably the most stunning event of a Major League Baseball executive, and it kills me to say this, was Theo Epstein. When you saw, I remember the Chicago Cubs game on ESPN, and the kid was behind Doug Glanville, and he gave the peace sign.
Oh yeah, right.
Did you see Theo's press conference after that?
Right. When that was
Theo came out and his first words were, "When I saw that, I was mortified." And I'm thinking to myself, no, not you too. I mean, Theo was always an old Democrat to me in the sense that he was very socially liberal and all the other things. But he wasn't woke like that.
Right.
And when he said that, I'm thinking to myself, wow, because Theo is a smart dude. And there's no way Theo saw that and thought what he said. Right? He thought everything else I thought, which is this: here's a college kid being an idiot. Period.
Right.
And this kid was banned from Wrigley Field. I mean, it's little things like that, right? I mean, there's always in a person's life, you can always point to specific events that will tell you about that person. Those moments where you just see somebody for who they are. We're there with the country now. We're seeing those moments literally multiple times daily, and the media is failing to report the true story, which is we no longer care what they think. 9 million people watched the Academy Awards, down from I think 59 million.
Right. It was
right. And
23 years earlier, they had 56 million. Correct.
We don't care anymore what Hollywood thinks. We don't care. I mean, the ratings on CNN and all these shows, it's hilarious. It's hilarious and awesome that no one is watching any of them. But that's all that's why I literally, and I my hand to God, I probably watched, outside of Tucker, I probably watched 15 minutes of live news in the last 6 months, because it no longer is news. It truly is. And it's scary for me to say this. The American media has become a propaganda machine for a liberal socialist platform and power that is not Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. This is a bigger group and a deeper group than that.
Hold on. You're putting 3 fingers up right there. Is that a white power salute? I think I see you.
I got to get I don't know what the gang sign is. Whatever
it is funny because
this is the I have goats. I have goats.
That is a great example of Theo one, which probably comes from his upbringing in the Red Sox organization, but they all have one thing in common.
Gerry, this is the thing though, for me, he's a smart guy. Like, he's not just book smart, he's life smart. He's one of the smartest people, most intuitive people I've ever met. And there's no chance, none, that he saw that and thought that. None.
Correct. That's my point. It's like no one thinks the Jeopardy guy was signaling white power. No one really believes that. But the mob is the one common thread. Is they're afraid of the woke mob. They're afraid of the Twitter mob. They're afraid of the New York Times. And they think that's the way to placate them, to say,
But here's the thing, that white supremacy is no longer a thing in the United States. Like, we've marginalized them. They don't have a seat at the table. The Democratic Party that had members in it that were part of the Klan. We had a president who paid Klan dues who was a Democrat. Those people, they're gone. They no longer have a say. They don't have any influence in this country. The only people keeping them alive and keeping their voice in the public persona is the media and the left.
Right. They can't name one. It's the most the worst threat we're facing, according to
and I keep saying, what is systemic racism?
Who's the leader? Who are you afraid of? Where are they? They don't have an answer because it's the boogeyman. They no longer have the orange man. Now they have the boogeyman.
I keep going back to if we're a systemically racist country, why have we found so many people in power who have tried to be Native American or black? I mean, Elizabeth Warren lied to be a Native American, and I can't remember the young lady's name who said she was
Rachel Dolezal.
Right. Why would she lie to be black in a systemically racist country?
That's a good question. As we see, with these police interactions, if the people are so afraid of the cops, why are they all such a-holes to the cops? Why is the college professor in LA yelling at the cop if they're so afraid?
If you abide by a law of an officer's word, if you listen and follow rules, I guarantee you 100% hand to God, you won't get shot.
Right. Back to Rob Manfred before we wrap this up here's how you know it's gutless, how it's cowardly. It's because there's no way Rob Manfred believes that the Georgia election laws are racist. There's no way Rob Manfred he said he was listening to, a bunch of black players. It was like 50 black players who supposedly voiced their
which is even more that's even more painful to me, Gerry, because that is the bigotry of low expectations that the left has of minorities is so offensive to me. Are you telling me that Latinos and blacks are too lazy and too stupid to get a driver's license? That's what they're saying.
That's what Stacey Abrams believes, and every single one of her followers on CNN.
How is that not racist?
It's beyond that. What like Keith Olbermann says is the people who ask for an ID, they're the Klan, they're the white supremacists, because you ask for an ID, which everybody, like 80% of the public, both sides of the aisle, believes is perfectly acceptable. Rob Manfred knows that. He knows the Georgia voters, the Georgia legislature did nothing wrong, did nothing offensive. He knows it, and yet he pulls $100 million out of their economy, moves it to Denver, which has stricter election laws, just to placate the mob for the time being. And I think you're going to see a real backlash in the ratings and the interest in the game, because a lot of their base is disgusted with that move. They're not.
Well,
the
New York City voting, the New York voting laws in New York are draconian compared to Georgia. Are the Mets and Yankees leaving?
Right, and Delaware too, where Biden's home state. Much more. No early voting. It's not even close.
I mean, listen.
Ridiculous.
Only in America can we elect a president who penned legislation that put more young black men in prison than any president in our lifetime, and call him a president for all people.
And he will use everything to divide people along racial lines. I mean, you point out, create this image that Trump, or this perception that Trump's racist. You know what was even more egregious, and it sounds ridiculous, but the idea that Derek Chauvin was racist, and it wasn't even an issue in court. Obviously, he got convicted. He's probably an awful person, and he committed the crime. And fine, put him away. But they invented this racial angle because it works for them.
Well, that's what they do with And the fact of the matter is, Derek Chauvin shouldn't have been there. That he had 14 priors in his jacket. He never should have had a badge at that point. Right. Now, listen, I don't think he intended to murder him. I do think manslaughter, whatever. I think he's going to jail for the rest of his life, and I think he should. Right. But the fact of the matter is, and I've said this, I've had a chance to talk to different bodies of police officers over the last couple of months, and I've said, listen, there's more of me than there is of them out there. Just know that, all right? There's more people out here that support you than don't, number one. Number two, your job is not to protect and serve anymore. Your job is to get home safe to your families every night, because my government doesn't have your back. I said, and lastly, please understand this. If you guys don't police yourselves, there's nothing I can do. Nothing I can do, because that one bad Derek Chauvin, you've seen what that is, the poster child for the left for police officers.
But it's one thing to say he was a bad guy and he was he broke the law, but why does it have to always be racist? Why does that become racist? Because it works for one side against the other, and our own president goes on and starts talking about.
That's what they do, right? It's divide and conquer. This is all about division. The people in the White House have no desire whatsoever for this country to unify, because if this country unified, we never have a Democrat sitting in an elected office ever again.
Right. And that's what they're afraid of. In 2 years, the tide could turn. But all right, Curt, I'll let you go. Do you have to do late feedings for any of your animals?
No, I'll go check. I have an injured baby goat.
An injured baby goat.
Yeah,
what's his name?
She doesn't have a name yet, but I'm hoping she pulls through. I've been bottle feeding her for the last couple of days. So
really, and you took all the animals, like put them on a moving truck and took.
So I had a gentleman do it, a phenomenal young guy who's a firefighter and does it in his spare time. He drove them down here, and they're all cooped up here and getting used to home number 2. And
I assume you brought all your guns. You're allowed to do that. Walk down.
Oh, sure, yeah. Down here, you basically just need a coupon from Circle K to carry a firearm, and it's open carry everywhere here. So,
and you can, out in the wilderness, don't go canoeing in that river. Where
it's amazing though. I walk into a Walmart and there's 4 or 5 people with guns and nobody is shooting anyone.
Yeah, that's a good point. That doesn't happen that way. Plus, you get to go to Nashville for kicks. You get to go.
Well, I will say, and this could get me on the outs up there. I have converted now. I'm now a Nashville Predators season ticket holder.
Are you?
Yes, and I will become a Nashville Predators fan, against the wishes of my oldest son. So there's going to be some family strife.
Do you have any country stars in the neighborhood, Tim McGraw, or
We
Taylor
do
Swift?
have a couple. I'm going to let their privacy remain private, but we have a couple. And like I said, I if the state were full of people like you, we never would have left.
I will say it again, my friend. I'm jealous because it does the fight up here. It does wear you down after a while.
It's heaven on earth down here, Gerry. It's heaven on earth. It really is.
Worse. Maybe I'll end up and come knocking at your door one of these days and say, yeah, we're looking.
I got an open stall.
All right. Do I have to feed the friggin' goat?
You have to do some farm work.
All right, Curt Schilling. Nice catching up with you.
Take care, Gerry.
By the way, last question. Are you officially given up telling the Hall of Fame to take your name off the ballot?
No. They promised me I would have my say at the meeting when they make that decision, so I'm waiting for that to happen.
Oh, so you get to go to a meeting and make your case?
I get to be a part of it, and I think I'm going to make a case that's going to be very, very strong argument for it. The Hall of Fame vote every year is a bitter experience for my family, right. and that's the opposite of what it should be. I mean, you got people. Morally bankrupt people like Dan Shaughnessy judging my character. No, thanks.
Well, good luck with that. Keep us posted, and we will talk to you again soon, Curt.
Take care, my friend.
Man. Talk to you.
God bless.
That is Curtis Montague Schilling, former Red Sox legend, who did like the friggin' reverse Beverly Hillbillies, packed up the things and moved to the sticks, moved to Tennessee, and he sounds pretty damn happy. And I don't blame him. I mean, if life here is aggravating and you don't really have anything keeping you here, you know what? You pay less taxes. Yes, you pay. You sit in traffic a lot less, and the weather's better for the most part. So good to hear he's doing well. Doesn't sound like he's going to be making up with the Boston Red Sox anytime soon. I don't think he'll be back for Old Timers Day, hanging with John Henry or Tom Warner or LeBron James if he comes back ever. I don't know if he will, but he probably will. I mean, he probably come back and get a big round of applause because they love him. The Red Sox owners love him, and they don't have to go to Liverpool anymore. Everyone hates him over there. So